Hi there. This is our fourth day of the reading tournament, and this book is called Soccer by Aaron Durr, illustrated by Scott Engel. In this book, readers learn the history of soccer and the role of various positions on the field. Here's your table of contents, and let's start. Going to practice. It's the first practice of the season, and Sophie is ready to go. She has played other sports before, but this will be her first time to play soccer, and Sophie can't wait to score a goal. When the practice begins, Sophie's coach talks to the players about how important it is to work together as a team. Each of them will have an important job to do. They all need to try their best if they're going to have a chance to win. Sophie leans over to her friend Brian and says, "When do we get to score goals?" "Shh," Brian says. "Listen to your coach." Sophie's coach tells the players that they need to warm up before practice. He asks each player to jog around the field one time. They all have to do 10 jumping jacks. "When do we get to practice scoring goals?" Sophie asks Brian. "Shh," Brian says. Fun fact, soccer is one of the most popular sports in the world. It is played in more than 200 countries. Passing and dribbling. Sophie already knows the basic rules of soccer. All of the players on one team try to kick the ball into the other team's goals, and all of the players on the other team try to stop them. But instead of having them kick the ball into the goal, Sophie's coach asks the players first to practice dribbling. "When do we get to score goals?" Sophie asks Brian. But Brian is already working on his dribbling. Did you know? The sport that we call soccer is known throughout most of the world as football. A set of rules called association football was formed more than 150 years ago. By the time that sport started to become popular in the United States, we already had a game called football, so association football became soccer. Now, what we call football is known as either American football or gridiron to the rest of the world. So confusing. In soccer, dribbling is when you kick the ball forward with your feet. If you kick the ball too far, the other team will kick it away. That's why it's important to keep the ball close to your feet. Sophie's coach sets up bright orange cones all along the field. Then he asks all of the players to dribble the ball back and forth between the cones. Fun fact, most soccer players wear shin guards. These are important because when a bunch of players are trying to kick the ball at the same time, it's easy for someone to accidentally get kicked in the shin. Ouch! Brian runs as fast as he can between the cones while still keeping the ball close to his feet. When it gets to Sophie's turn, she's in such a hurry that she kicks the ball too far away. "Try to keep the ball closer to your feet, Sophie," her coach says. "Okay," she says, "but when do we get to score goals?" Just joking. Why can't Cinderella play soccer? She always runs away from the ball. Next, the coach asks the players to work on passing. In soccer, you pass the ball by kicking it with the side of your foot to one of your teammates. This is a very important skill. Sometimes your teammate might have a better chance to score than you do. Sophie and Brian line up and pass the ball back and forth to each other. Brian kicks the ball softly to Sophie, but when Sophie kicks it back, it goes too far away. Brian has to run back and get it. "Try to kick the ball straight to your teammate, Sophie," the coach says. Sophie looks at Brian. "When do we get to score goals?" she asks. Did you know? If a player kicks the ball out of bounds along a sideline, the other team gets to throw it back in. If a player kicks it out next to the other team's goal, the other team gets a free kick from a special spot near the front of the goal. And if a player kicks it out next to his own goal, the other team gets a free kick from the corner. The first game. Finally, it's time to play a real soccer game. Sophie has her uniform, her shoes, and her shin guards. She's ready to go. But when the game starts, Sophie's coach only sends some of the players out to the field. The rest have to wait on the sideline for their turn to play. Sophie is one of the ones who has to wait. When the game starts, most of the players are on the sideline or cheering for their teammates. Brian makes a great pass and one of his teammates scores a goal. The players on the field celebrate. Even the players on the sideline are happy, except for Sophie. "When do I get to score a goal?" she asks. Fun fact: the World Cup is an international soccer tournament with the best teams in the world. Brazil has won the most men's World Cup Brazil has won the men's World Cup 5 times, more than any other country. The United States has won the most women's World Cup titles with 3 championships. A few minutes later, Sophie finally gets into the game. "Remember, Sophie," her coach says, "dribble the ball close to your feet and pass the ball to your teammates when you can." Sophie runs out to the field. When the ball comes to her, she kicks it forward as hard as she can. She can't wait to score a goal. "Sophie, Sophie, I'm open," Brian yells from the other side of the field. Sophie looks over and sees that Brian is standing all by himself in front of the other team's goal. But Sophie wants to score herself, so she tries to dribble closer and... Did you know? Soccer fields have to be shaped like a rectangle, but not all of them are the same size. They can be as long as 130 yards and as wide as 100 yards. By comparison, an American football field is 120 yards long and about 53 yards wide. So she tries to dribble closer and, here we go. Suddenly, one of the players from the other team kicks the ball away. The other player dribbles down the field and then passes it to one of her teammates. Then they pass it again and again and again. Then, in an instant, the other team scores a goal. Sophie is sad. She feels like it's her fault that the other team scored. Did you know? Most soccer leagues use referees to make sure the players don't break the rules. If a player makes a small mistake, the other team gets a free kick. If a player makes a bigger mistake, he might be shown a yellow card, which acts as a warning. If a player gets 2 yellow cards in one game, he or she has to quit playing in that game. If a player tries to hurt another player, he could receive a red card, which means he has to quit the game right away. "It's okay, Sophie," her coach says. "Next time to remember to keep the ball close to you and pass it to your teammate when you can." Sophie has a lot to think about. Back to work. Sophie decides she needs to practice to get better, so she goes home and starts kicking the ball around her backyard. Instead of kicking it as hard as she can, she works on dribbling. Back and forth and all around her yard she goes. Then she works on passing. She aims for a tree in her yard and tries to kick the ball straight at it. It takes a lot of practice, but soon she can kick it right at the tree almost every time. At the next practice, Sophie is ready to do her best. Her coach talks to the players about the different positions in soccer. He tells them how some of the players are supposed to score goals and some of them are supposed to stop the other team from scoring a goal. Just joking. Question: why did the soccer ball want to quit? Answer: it was tired of being kicked around. And he says, "I quit." Soccer players. Professional soccer teams use 11 players at a time. Most kids' teams use 8 players. Goalkeeper. As long as he stays in front of his own goal, the goalkeeper is the only player who can touch the ball with his hands while the game is going on. He wears a different jersey from his teammates, so the referee can tell them apart. Defenders. These players mostly stay in front of the goalkeeper and help keep the ball out of their team's goal. Midfielders. These players usually stay in the middle of the field. They can go back to help the defenders, and they can also move up to help the forwards. Forwards. These players can move all the way to the other team's goal. With help from the midfielders, they try to score goals for their team. These players are also called strikers. Sophie's coach tells her she'll be playing as a defender. That means her role isn't to score a goal. Her goal is to stay back by her team's goal and kick the ball away if one of the players from the other team gets too close. It's a very important job, and Sophie is excited. After all, a soccer team can't win if the other team scores too many goals. Sophie's coach says if any of the players try to do something they aren't supposed to do, it hurts the whole team. If someone who is playing defender tries to run up too far up the field and score a goal, then there's nobody left to play defender. Everyone on the team is counting on each other to do their part. During practice, Sophie works on doing her part. She likes keeping the ball away from her team's goal. When the ball gets too close, she dribbles it away, then she passes it to one of her teammates so they can try to score a goal. "Great job, Sophie," her coach says. "Yes, Sophie," says Brian. "Good job." Did you know? Throughout most of the world, soccer games are called matches, and soccer fields are called pitches. Fun fact: Major League Soccer, or MLS, is the top professional soccer league in the United States and Canada. There are 20 teams, and the top 12 each year compete in the MLS Cup playoffs. The champion is awarded a trophy called the MLS Cup. At the next game, Sophie had to start on the sideline, but that's okay. When you're on the sideline, you can still help by cheering on your teammates. A few minutes into the game, Brian dribbles the ball close to the other team's goal. Then he passes it to his teammate, and she scores. Sophie cheers. "Great pass, Brian," she says. "Sophie," her coach says, "it's your turn to play." Sophie runs onto the field, helping the team. As a defender, Sophie knows she has to stay close to her team's own goal. She lines up and is ready to go. When the ball gets closer to the other team's goal, Sophie and the other defenders move up in case their teammates need their help. When the ball comes back toward them, they move back to protect their goal. Sophie's team is doing great. They're winning the game by 1 goal, but suddenly it looks like the other team might score. Sophie runs back to try to stop them. A player from the other team is dribbling toward the goal, but the ball goes too far away from him. Sophie kicks it away. Then Sophie starts dribbling up the field. She sees Brian open up ahead, so she passes the ball straight to him. Great pass. Just joking. Question: how do soccer players stay cool in the summer? Answer: they stand near the fans. Brian takes the ball and passes it to another teammate. Before you know it, their team has scored. "Great pass," Brian says. "Thanks," says Sophie. "You did pretty good too." After the game, Brian tells Sophie, "I'm sorry you didn't get to score a goal." "That's okay," Sophie says. "I'll get to score a goal someday. I just like doing my part to help the team." Try this. The only way to become a good soccer player is to practice. Start by kicking a ball in your neighborhood or any grassy area. It doesn't have to be a real soccer ball. Any ball will do as long as it's big enough to kick around. When you're just getting started, don't try to kick it hard. It's more important that you're able to control the ball. Run back and forth and all around, keeping the ball close to you at all times. As you get used to it, try to go faster and faster, always keeping the ball close. When you get really good, practice keeping your head up so you aren't looking down at the ball the whole time. It's a lot easier to see when you're going when you're looking up. And that's your glossary again for those highlighted words.